The attack rate is down 90%. That is the official figure. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper said it at a joint press briefing at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa on March 5, 2026. Ballistic missile attacks down 90% since day one of Operation Epic Fury. Drone attacks down 83%. It was the headline number of the entire operation. And on that same day, the same day Cooper gave that briefing, Iranian state media confirmed the launch of a Khorramshahr-4 ballistic missile towards central Israel. One missile from Iran's eastern interior, after the 90% reduction. That gap between the official suppression figure and the specific system that flew on the same day it was announced is where the most important story of this operation lives. Because the 90% figure and the Khorramshahr-4 launch are not in contradiction, they are measuring two completely different things. And understanding exactly what each of them is measuring is the only way to understand what Operation Epic Fury has actually achieved and what it has not. To understand that distinction, you have to start not with the CENTCOM briefing, but with what Iran placed inside a mountain 3 weeks before the operation began. On February 6, 2026, 22 days before Operation Epic Fury launched, Far's news agency reported that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had unveiled the Khorramshahr-4 ballistic missile at a ceremony at a newly revealed underground facility belonging to the IRGC Aerospace Force. The report described what Iranian officials called a missile city, not a launch site, not a storage depot, a city. A network of hardened underground chambers built inside mountainous terrain, divided into segments that can seal off independently from one another. The Army Recognition Group published its technical assessment of the Khorramshahr-4 and these facilities on March 3, 2026. It describes the missile's key specifications with precision. Range of approximately 2,000 kilometers, warhead capacity of up to 1,500 kilograms, which Army Recognition notes is the heaviest warhead configuration in Iran's confirmed ballistic missile inventory. Speeds reaching Mach 16 outside the atmosphere and approximately Mach 8 during atmospheric re-entry. Flight time from launch to target estimated at 10 to 12 minutes. And a maneuverable re-entry vehicle equipped with 8 auxiliary engines, 4 for attitude stabilization, and 4 for lateral course correction during terminal descent. Read those last 3 specifications carefully, because each of them corresponds directly to a specific failure mode in the intercept chain that Patriot and Arrow batteries are designed to execute. The Mach 8 terminal velocity means the intercept window, the time available between acquisition and impact, is measured in seconds. The maneuvering re-entry vehicle means the missile does not fly a predictable ballistic arc that fire control computers can solve cleanly in advance. It moves, it corrects. In the same terminal phase when interceptors are calculating their final engagement geometry. And the 8 auxiliary engines mean those corrections are active and continuous, not a single pre-programmed evasion. Army Recognition's assessment states the operational implication directly. The combination of hypersonic terminal velocity and active maneuver capability places the system in a different threat category from the shorter-range, lower-velocity missiles that represented the bulk of Iran's launch volume on day 1 of the operation. That bulk is what the 90% figure is measuring. Here is what the 90% reduction actually describes, based on the confirmed statements of the commanders running the operation. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir stated at a press conference on March 5, 2026, that Israeli forces had neutralized more than 60% of Iran's ballistic missile launchers since the start of operations. Trump, speaking at the White House on the same day, said the following in his exact words: "Missiles are gone, launchers are gone, about 60 and 64% respectively." CENTCOM Commander Cooper, in the same briefing where he announced the 90% attack reduction, confirmed that B-2 stealth bombers had dropped dozens of 2,000-pound penetrator bombs on deeply buried ballistic missile launchers. The Pentagon confirmed those bombs were BLU-109 equipped GBU-31 joint direct attack munitions, each weighing 2,000 pounds. The Warzone published satellite imagery from Planet Labs on March 1, 2026, showing collapsed tunnel entrances at the Tabriz North Missile Base. Tunnel entrances collapsed. That is a specific and measurable result. Collapsing a tunnel entrance prevents launches from that aperture. It degrades the rate at which Iran can generate volleys from that site. And across dozens of sites, the aggregate effect of that campaign is what produces the 90% reduction in launch rate. That number is real. It reflects a genuine degradation of Iran's above-ground and access point infrastructure. But here is the distinction that the 90% headline does not contain. The BLU-109 is a 2,000-pound precision munition. It is the primary instrument of the bunker suppression campaign. The other weapon in the B-2's arsenal, the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, weighs 30,000 pounds. That is a 15-to-1 difference in penetrating mass. The B-2 used MOPS against Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan in June 2025. Trump subsequently said Iran's nuclear program had been fully neutralized. In March 2026, 8 months later, B-2s are striking the same country using 2,000-pound munitions, not 30,000-pound ones. The War Zone reported on March 1st that while BLU-109 strikes were capable of collapsing tunnel entrances and disabling the launch apertures at surface-accessible sites, Iran's missile cave complexes are divided into segmented chambers that seal independently from one another. A strike on the entrance is not a strike on what remains operational beyond it. Satellite imagery shows the entrances collapsed. It does not show what is functioning in the chambers beyond them. CENTCOM Commander Cooper acknowledged this directly on March 5th in the same briefing where he announced the 90% figure. He introduced a mission formulation that had not been stated publicly before. Trump, he said, had assigned the operation a second task: to raise or level Iran's ballistic missile industrial base, not just launchers, the production infrastructure, the capacity to reconstitute. Cooper's words were precise. We are not just hitting what they have. We are eliminating their ability to rebuild. That formulation is a direct acknowledgement that neutralizing the existing inventory is not sufficient if the production and storage infrastructure survives, and it reflects a specific lesson. The January 2026 report, published by the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, drawing on satellite imagery and open source intelligence, documented that Iran had recovered approximately 95 missile launchers that Israeli operations had blocked during the June 2025 12-day conflict, repaired damaged systems, and constructed new ones. That reconstitution was not theoretical. It was documented on satellite imagery across multiple sites over a period of months. That is the context inside which the Khorramshahr-4 launched on March 5th. The JINSA report also contains a detail that most coverage has not highlighted. According to its assessment, published in February 2026, before the operation began, Chinese companies had supplied materials used in solid fuel missile production to Iran through 2025. And Russia, according to a Washington Post report published March 6th, 2026, citing multiple sources, has been providing Iran with intelligence to support targeting of American military assets in the region since operations began. That 90% suppression was achieved against a force operating without that intelligence support. The mobile systems that remain operational are now receiving it. The Khorramshahr-4 is specifically designed for this scenario. Its placement inside segmented underground chambers is designed to survive an entrance collapse campaign. Its deployment on mobile transporter erector launchers, which Army Recognition Group confirmed in its February 2026 analysis, allows it to operate from positions in Iran's eastern interior, furthest from the fixed infrastructure addressed in Phase 1. Its propulsion system, which Fars News reported has been upgraded to reduce launch preparation time to under 15 minutes, enables rapid launch from concealed mobile positions. And its 2,000-kilometer range places Israeli territory and every American installation in the Gulf within reach from those eastern positions. IDF Chief of Staff Zamir confirmed on March 5th that operations were transitioning to a second phase, which he described as intensifying pressure on the foundations of the regime and its military capabilities. He added that forces would begin addressing bunkers, storing ballistic missiles buried deep underground. Reuters confirmed this from 2 independent sources. The announcement of a Phase 2 focused on deep underground storage is a direct confirmation that Phase 1, the campaign that produced the 90% reduction, did not resolve the underground problem. The transition to Phase 2 is the operational acknowledgement of the distinction between suppressing above-ground launch infrastructure and reaching what remains sealed inside the mountains. Watch 3 things in the coming 72 hours that will tell you whether the Khorramshahr-4 problem is being addressed or whether the Phase 2 campaign is still working through the access problem that Phase 1's munitions could not solve. Watch whether CENTCOM briefings begin specifying assessment of deep underground storage chambers, rather than launcher counts and entrance collapses. A shift in the language from launchers neutralized to chambers assessed is the signal that Phase 2 is reaching different targets than Phase 1. Watch whether B-2 sortie reporting changes. The B-2 carries a maximum of 2 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators per sortie. Those weapons were used at Fordo and Natanz in June 2025. If Phase 2 requires reaching chambers sealed beyond collapsed entrances, 2,000-pound BLU-109s cannot achieve what a 30,000-pound MOP can. Any public confirmation that MOP employment has resumed in this operation is the signal that Phase 2 has identified specific chamber targets requiring that level of capability. And watch the Khorramshahr-4 launch cadence. On March 5th, one launched. If the rate from Iran's eastern interior begins to increase while the aggregate 90% suppression figure holds, that tells you the remaining capability is consolidating rather than degrading. The 90% figure measures what Phase 1 addressed. What Phase 2 is built to answer is the question of what survived it. The suppression is real. The 90% is a documented operational achievement across hundreds of sorties and dozens of confirmed launcher assessments. And on the day it was announced, A missile carrying a 1,500 kilogram payload flew from Iran's eastern interior toward central Israel at terminal velocities that compressed the available intercept window to seconds. Both of those facts happened on March 5th, 2026. Neither one cancels the other. Understanding why both of them are true simultaneously is the beginning of understanding what Operation Epic Fury's second phase is actually being asked to solve.